Hello, and we're back at the Spirit of Watercolor. Welcome and good to see you again. Linda here. And, it's middle of summer now, right? And, I thought it would be so nice for us to do a really summer scene. Like, what if we went to Hawaii together on our journey? Now, I haven't been there in years, but my daughter just went and she had a wonderful time on a sort of a trip where you go down to the coral reefs and scuba diving and all that good stuff, and seeing Hawaii in the water as well as on the surface. So I thought it would be fun. So I started this painting of just the landscape and the seas, the ocean and the palm trees. I was looking up lots of palm trees and I found a couple here. I should be able to show you maybe on my tablet that were watercolors. They're not signed, so I don't know who created these. And they just inspired me to look at watercolors and just to see how you can create something sort of, realistic. I hope my lights aren't hitting it. They might be. We're getting reflection. It just, some palm trees and some water, right? And some of the grasses and so forth. And so I thought that would be fun. And then there's another one that's much more abstract and loose, more like what I do. And it's very pretty as well, but just loose and just, some interesting colors like purples and blues. I'm going to take some of this and kind of do a combination of, like, say, both of these that I love. So I started to do sort of that purple sky. It needs to be, this is like the first glaze, so it's very, very soft. I haven't done the trees yet, but I just did some of the background, and you can see at the table, and I did some of the foreground as well, just some of the grasses. And then, as we move forward, we'll do the sand here and the palm trees. So I hope you would like to go to Hawaii with me. I thought it would be fun and very summery. And then when the seasons change, we'll have something to look upon. Maybe we'll frame it and put it somewhere in our home, or give it to my daughter if she likes it or whatever. And someone can reminisce about what it's like in beautiful summertime, on a beautiful island in Hawaii, right? So anyway, I'm glad you're here. Thanks to the new subscribers, welcome, and please continue with me on this spiritual journey as we learn more. So anyway, let's go to the table and let's go to Hawaii together. I'll see you there. Here's some inspiring pictures I found on the computer. You can look up photos and other people's artwork and get inspired. So I mixed my Indanthrene blue and my Carbazole violet and make a sort of a purple blue on Saunders paper, and my favorite paper still, and just starting with the water on the sky, and then just wet on wet water, and then bringing in our mixed blue here. And I just start to really let that paint flow, and it just kind of starts to look like clouds are there. You kind of keep some of that white in there, right? And just kind of keep it loose, fresh, don't labor over it. It is going to be pretty soft here, even though I could add a lot more strong color, but I kind of like the soft blue for this particular piece. And just coming in, and then in a little bit we're going to go down to the water and use the same colors basically to get that started. And again, wetting the paper and just letting that paint flow. And that's how I create water. I love how the water of watercolor kind of makes the motion of water in your paintings if you don't try too hard. Use a nice big brush like I'm doing here, okay? And you'll see what happens. There is a little bit of land in that background that seems to be creating itself, and I think that, you know, I will come back in later and add more background in there, maybe before I finish. I'm debating that. We'll see how it dries, because it looks like it's kind of forming a little bit of information that's, you know, so far away there it might be enough, right? So let's wait and see. By the way, I went right over the tree trunks because I'm going to come in with a brown, and then I may add an opaque white just to define them a little. So not to worry, and just kind of go right straight in, and the palm leaves too will just kind of come in on the top over the soft purpley blue wash. And then now we're going to do the rest of the ocean there, and, you know, define where the ocean meets the land. And it kind of dipped down a bit, kind of, and so I just followed that from, you know, the painting that I was enjoying looking at, or the two paintings. And it's very wet. You know, I just used water in the ocean first, clear water, and then, you know, let it set into the paper a little, and then you bring in just with the pointed round, just, you know, a line here and there of the purpley blue to create some waves. They'll just spread a little because of the damp paper. Like I said before, using water to create the effect of water is the best way. You know, trying to do it with the brush strokes just doesn't do it like this. So try it. Get your paper wet and lay that paint in and let it flow as water does. You get a little bit of my head in here, but I'm doing the same thing you saw on the right side of the painting, so no harm done there. And here we start the grasses with a very thin rigger brush, which is a long bristled thin brush. If you don't have one, they're terrific to have, or just use a tiny painted round or pointed round, sorry. And just, you know, just bring those up. You know, there were long grasses on the beach, and they're fun to do. And then add some land underneath in the foreground of the beachy scene here. I'm adding a beautiful burnt sienna-like color. In my case, it's Quinacridone burnt sienna, I think. And just adding so that you can see some, you know, soil or sand mixed in with the grass color. Or I'm using green gold a lot because I love that in the foreground. A nice, warm, intense yellow-green. And sorry, my head is in there a bit, but I'm doing the same thing on the other side, just a little more elongated, not quite exactly the same. I don't want them to look like, you know, it's too symmetrical or too, you know, nature is not. So, you know, let's go up the hill a little and add the green, and then, you know, again, grasses and land.
I'm connecting the two areas of land some, but not completely, so that they kind of break up, so it just adds interest. It's not just completely, this line in the foreground. It's kind of broken up, which I think makes things more interesting. I learned that somewhere at Eastern University. So here I'm started the trees and the palm trees, and I used this that burnt sienna color in a light wash to start with, and just bring that large pointed round up, number 8 I'm using, if you need to know the size, just to make these tall, kind of bending tree trunks, which are the beauty of the palm tree. They kind of go up and lean toward the water, toward the sunlight. So, and just creating those, just a first wash, and then as they dry, I'll add in more details. You may hear this in all of my videos, but I work around the page, right? So I'm back in the grasses, then as I'm letting the tree trunks dry, you go back and forth, and you don't labor on one area and overwork it. That's a really important skill to learn, because it makes such a difference in our art, in our paintings. When I go back into the trees, I use different concentrations of browns, some darker and some lighter in value, some warmer, a little more of the orangey from the burnt sienna versus just brown. And then, when they dry, I'm going to take my white opaque, it's not opaque, yes it is, it's an opaque white watercolor in a jar that I order from Amazon, and I just use that to detail them a little, because they do have some interesting like rings around the palm trunks. It's very interesting and different than trees we see here in the Midwest. Working on those palms now, and I started with too thin of a brush. I used the rigger brush, and I actually had some nice fun using my fan brush in a different way than you do with pine trees, just kind of moving them around up and down, so that you get that flowing of the palms. And I could get a lot of information down quickly, but later I have to go back because I need to thicken those up, so I use a thicker brush, like a number 4 pointed round, to get more wide palm leaves there. Another super interesting thing I did not ever think of, and you may have or may not, some palm trees create the coconuts, grow the coconuts on them, and I put some coconuts in my trees later, but some do and some do not. So there's only one specific palm tree that has the coconuts grow on it. Who knew? I didn't. That's why we paint. We learn things when we're painting, right? In a moment, you'll see that I'm using the white, opaque white, and bringing in those details into the palm tree, rings of the palm tree. Okay, so then I wanted to put in, the impression of sand, and it of course gets lighter toward the foreground, so I just kind of use graduated wash out toward white, and I'm using that same beautiful sienna color. Again, I think it's Quinacridone Sienna. I don't think it's burnt sienna. It's not called that. There's a burnt orange, quinacridone burnt orange, and a quinacridone burnt sienna. And I'm bringing that color into the foreground more, just to unify the background and the foreground. And actually, later on, I'm going to bring it over way back in the background too. Under the land, under the purple land in the water, I'm going to bring in that, just again to unify this painting. You don't want one color to just be up at the top and another at the bottom. It kind of splits the painting, another compositional tip. Okay. I had to finish the video because it was getting long, but as you can see, I did add that background, that sienna color under the land way back, and I did, thicken up my leaves with a wider brush, round brush, number 4. And it looks more saturated here. I think the video was lighter because of the ring light. I have to adjust that light a little better, but I think we have it, and I think I like the finished picture. Also, there was a little white streak in the top of the sky, so I took advantage of that and created a little seagull up there. And thank you so much for joining me on our little trip to Hawaii together, and I hope that you'll give this a try, and hope you'll keep joining me so we can create and grow together and enjoy the spiritual nature of this beautiful medium called watercolor. And I'll see you soon on our next video. Bye for now.